so I'm currently waiting on the engine to get here for that, so I don't want to dive into anything complicated. So we're working on the race car for a little bit. I did work on it yesterday. It was Father's Day. We got our bung welded onto our drain line. Just got to put that on. Obviously, I bolted the turbo up fully. Thermostat housing is on, along with everything associated with that. I put our coolant pressure sensor in here. I forgot how tight this was, so we'll see if that's going to be a problem. I really do need to make a new fill neck for it. It's just, I really just don't feel like it. Coolant lines are all on the turbo, feed lines on the turbo. Just used this to make sure that I had this rotated properly. Throttle body's on, plugged in, fuel rail. I couldn't find the fuel rail that we had on this car, but luckily I have, you know, a pile of the MR16 fuel rails laying around. And then I started working on our catch can puke tank whole deal, so I'll show you that. So I just started welding up. This is one half of that tank, so I have our 10AN inlets, and then I just lathe up these. One of the breathers on the valve cover is a barb. It's plastic, not much I can do about it, so I'm just gonna use a hose. So I'm gonna weld that onto there after I clean it. And then our outlet breather for this is also just gonna be a hose. No sense in putting a -10 fitting on there. And that'll go on this side. And what I'll do, so that this has some sort of, you know, separation to it, is I'll have the outlet, so it'll actually be like this, so these are on top, and then our outlet will also be on top, so it'll be like around there. I'll put a piece of aluminum that covers this up with some stainless steel mesh inside of it to separate the oil vapor and water vapor from the air, so that we just evacuate air. The inlet port, this hole matches the size on the valve cover. I'm going to machine out the other side so that this hole is bigger for the breather out. This will accumulate a lot of air before it starts to pressurize, so it will still be able to evacuate fast enough. We just need somewhere to catch the fluid that's not going to fill up crazy fast. I also need to be able to empty this pretty easily, so, you know, using just a barb on the end of it definitely makes that easier. I'm kicking myself for not doing this earlier. Low Dollar, who we buy our pressure sensors from, they sell pre-made wiring for the sensors. So like there's one on pressure sensor already for the coolant pressure, and then a new one for the back pressure sensor. It saves me a ton of time just doing this, and they're like, I think $7 each, and they come nice with like a 90 on them already and everything. So like, kind of silly not to use that. I'm thinking about swapping out our fuel pressure gauge for a pressure sensor, because I do have a 150 psi sensor left from my last order to put on there, which would be nice so that that data we have. So I might do that. Again, the more data you get, the better off you're going to be. So we're getting there. All right, so we have our outlet, our inlets, everything's drilled out, and then this is the bottom. I have this baffle here with space underneath it and space above it, enough so that air will be able to freely pass through. And then I have this big roll of stainless steel wool. I'm going to take this, clean it, like take a big chunk of it, and then on the inlet side, just fill this with steel wool. Just fill it. That way, as the air passes through here, it's going to have the oil and water vapor hit the steel wool, and then clean air hopefully will come out this other side. You're never 100% going to get it, especially in a system like this. We're not worried about 100%. We're just trying to make sure that solid fluid doesn't go out the other side. I am going to weld it shut. I originally wasn't, but I'm going to weld it shut. And then to drain it, with this side being completely open, we'll be able to just take this hose off, take the puke tank out, and dump it out. So I'm going to weld this up. It's going to warp quite a bit because this stuff is thin. I'm going to try to be as cold as I can with it, but I also don't want to spend an hour welding the damn thing. So we're going to do that and then make some mounting brackets for it, and then that will be done. All right, our catch can puke tank is on and mounted. We clear everything, That's a pretty tight fit, but this engine doesn't really move. We have the temporary motor mount in right now, but a real motor mount's a solid steel. So we have that in, got to run this hose, run all these hoses, and then that system is done. So next up, we're going to put the oil drain line in, make that 10 AN line, and then we'll make these 10 AN lines. And then it's really just a matter of battery and reconnecting everything in the car. And this should fire up. I do need to add the sensors and all that stuff, but yesterday I also put the steering column in. So we took the steering column out of this car to put it in another car that needed one, and this steering column was rusty. So what I did is I actually gutted it. So, I mean, I'm not gonna be able to physically show you, but the motor's out of it, everything related to the motor is out of it. It is just basically a shaft at this point, just to take weight out of it. It ended up taking about 7 pounds out. So every pound counts. We don't have power steering anyway, so who cares? So I might also put coolant in this thing just so that it can start kind of naturally bleeding out air. I'm really not a fan of this. That might get taken care of sooner rather than later. But yeah, so now it's just AN lines, which I love doing so much. And then a little bit of wiring for the new sensors, and that's pretty much it. It should fire up. I mean, it's going to be kind of a pain to fire it up because it's such low compression. I have to change the tune completely. But yeah, that's where we're at. All right, we got the Puke tank all hooked up. So we have, this is coming from what would usually be the PCV. This is a -8, so I just did it as a push lock on here. It's on there pretty good. So that's that. I gotta tighten that fitting down. So that goes to here. The middle one goes to the breather. And then this one over here routes up and around and down to that additional port that we added. And then on the other side, I gotta bend this a little bit so there's not so much pressure on this. But this will route up in here, and then I'll put like a filter or something on the end of it and mount it over there so that we can see what's coming out of it. So that's all that. The engine just showed up for this thing. So that's kind of the progress we're gonna make on this for now. But that's a big, big piece of it. So oil drain, sensors, and then this thing is ready to rock and roll, I think. I gotta put the axles in it, obviously, but that's exciting.